Hey, what's up, guys? This was suggested to me by a watcher. Also, I had heard of this roundabout, right? But I saw it on Amazon. It was actually a decent price. It's that large format of these British war comics, right? And it's reprinted from the early '80s from this Battle magazine. I liked this so much that I actually ended up getting the previous Battle action, right? I had reviewed number 5 that featured these guys in an all new story. So, um, what can I say? This was. I mean, you don't even have American comics doing this, and I always bemoan the nihilism of the British writers, but you only ever had a comic with German protagonists who you root for, who you're like want to see succeed. In this comic, and it's amazing they got even Garth Ennis, who I have issues with, likes this. Now it sort of makes sense because it is sort of in the nihilistic school. Why they have the modern flag, which is also the 1848 Revolution flag, I don't know, but uh, Death Squad is basically these guys, right? So they sort of get around the whole Nazi thing by making these guys penal battalion dudes. So they're sort of rebels. The leader is a World War I vet who somehow got in trouble for something. You actually have a guy who's not even German. He's a Swede. Right? He's a big, simple-minded Swede that's good with an axe. You have two sort of, ne'er-do-well criminal types. This guy is like with the Messer, right? Frank the Knife, what was it? What was it? Mac the Knife, Mac the Messer, right? But it's Shootsy Frankie, right? And then you have this dude. He's sort of he's like the guy they all pick on a little bit. He's like the Nazi, the National Socialist ideologue guy who got in trouble anyway, and sort of like tries to keep his fellows in line. But it's interesting. There hasn't been an American equivalent of this at all. So all this shit I talk about the British comics, I have to sort of reverse that on this. Okay, and the writer, it's funny. The writer is this Alan Hebden. He actually used a pseudonym because he was writing another comic at the time. Here, right. So and the artist too, the Bradbury, was an actual World War II vet. He was a Lancaster bomber gunner. Okay, I was about to say Lancaster, like around here, but which is actually the old way they said Lancaster, actually. But anyway, the art, very black and white art, so there's a lot of black. You have a lot of this is like almost like how the Japanese, you have to master your shadowing, your chiaroscuro, all that to really solidify not having color, right? Uh, the other thing too, like Donavetta. My grandfather used to say Donavetta all the time. The other thing that's fascinating too is that in terms of the anthology, these stories are all like the first one was 4 pages, right? And all the rest of them, the stories are 3 pages long. That's it. So every chapter was 3 pages. Now, the stories would continue from each other, right? So it wasn't like they would just have 3 stories and then have another random story or whatever. They would have like 12 chapter longs of these 3 page stories, but essentially in terms of the format, which is fascinating from the comic as commodity point of view. The amount of stuff this artist had to get in and the writer had to get in was huge. So you have very dense material, and you really got to follow it closely. Sometimes it could be a little confusing, but I don't care. Like this was a treasure. Okay, of course, the German, the nihilism factor is that, the guys you're rooting for are criminals. Obviously, the Nazis are bad, right? But what's nice to see is that the Red Army and the Soviets and the NKVD are shown to be just as bad, okay? And it doesn't stop, stuff like this where you basically see Germans and a Swede fighting for them, killing Red Army soldiers left and right, you know, blowing up their tanks. And there's a funny thing about it. Like I said, Kelly's Heroes, The Dirty Dozen, which I'm not a fan of, but also there's a movie from the early '80s. The guy from the Warriors who played the leader of the Ravens and who played Sully in Commando was a character in it. There was a movie about a German penal battalion that was sent in a mission too. And it was an American film, and I forgot the name of it. I remember renting it. It's essentially this comic is a movie. Anyway, just going through here. I had a lot of fun with this. Fast paced. Like I said, the Red Army, the Russians are not seen in any sympathetic light. The partisans are not seen in a sympathetic light. Even at near the end of the run of this, they fight British commandos, and the British commandos are very bloodthirsty too. And the fact that these are British writers doesn't stop these characters from getting the better of them. So I'm trying to see anything of note. Just in general, I recommend it. You get this, to see stuff like this, like, yeah. It's a rule of the road, Ivan. If you stop, you're dead. I've never, other than the SS the Knights of the SS by Wayne Van Zandt, you've never seen any English speaking comic or have this stuff in here. We're actually showing Germans fighting and beating the shit out of their enemies. And it's funny too. One of the storylines, they actually come real close to shooting Uncle Joe here. Uncle Joe Stalin, where? God Himmel, what's going on? All of those adults playing that, they can't even march across a red square properly. Well, they're probably drunk. So and then, they almost get Stalin, but they get in trouble here, and they show the NKVD just openly torturing these guys. And I like how they show, like, what's happened to me? How can I accept defeat and despair? I wasn't given the Iron Cross in 1918 by Panadorf himself for skulking in a cell, right? And this is him in the First War. And they right? Whatever. So, recommended comic. I like this. Kill who? Russians? Oh, that's easy. It's funny, too. Half the Red Army guys are drawn to be Mongolian looking. They're Tartarish looking. So there's a subplot later too where the partisans instigate a war between the SS and the Wehrmacht, where they think the SS were executing Wehrmacht guys, right? So, and what's funny about this is. You have the more of Himmler's ugly little pets. Wehrmacht scum, you'll pay for that. You have them like fighting and killing each other, and then all of a sudden somebody shows up. The only time you see him, Mustache Man. And the funny thing about it is that Mustache Man actually figures out what's going on and actually accurately assesses what has been going on, right? Has it not occurred to anybody that this might be a deliberate trick designed to put the Wehrmacht and the SS at each other's throats? After all, only one side will benefit, our Russian foe. Show me the film of the alleged executioner guy. It's like, well, man, I figured it out. Oh, jeez. He was that guy, I don't care for that guy. I don't really care for that Hitler guy, Anyway, so... fun comic, crazy comic. After the British Commando thing, which the British Commandos are shown to be ruthless and kill unarmed soldiers constantly, actually, which is interesting. They sort of, I guess there was an annual, right? So they had these guys here continuing on, but I guess this was kind of it for them. I'm surprised this even got published. And what's cool is they got some of these. They should have had more of these battle tech things. This thing, the Natter, this thing was a rocket. This was interesting. I'll go over that at some point. That was an interesting weapon that the Germans were trying to develop. But yeah, very impressed. So now going to battle action. I got this because it featured these guys in a new adventure. So And the first story I don't really care for. Some cool Garth Ennis wrote it, of course. It shows it's supposed to be this British guy, this really cold ass machine gunner with the Vickers, right? And you see them in Anzio, right? Killing the Fallschirmjägers, right? Which is hilarious because the actual history of it, the Fallschirmjägers wiped the floor with these fucking limeys. Oh, sorry to my British readers. It's like, it shows the superior of the Spandau to this thing. I mean, the MG42 fucking would fuck this thing up the ass. So, but it's a Garth Ennis story. So you have things like these guys actually getting the better of like highly trained paratroopers in hand-to-hand combat. If you want to see how these guys actually fought with each other, look at Monte Cassino, where the British couldn't take a place that they, that the Germans promised not to take, and then the British bombed it anyway. And then the Germans were like, "Okay, you're gonna break your rule, your word. We'll occupy it anyway, and then we'll fight you off for months and outfight you British easily." So, and of course, it's a Garth Ennis story. He has to have a scene like this. That's impossible, mate. It's impossible. So, anyway, hopefully this guy was enriched later in whatever shit British city he lives in, English city he lives in, by vibrancy. So that's what he would deserve. Why did I get all on that? So, but the new story with these guys, this is what I'm focusing on. The new story with this was pretty good, and it was a longer story. It was more than 3 pages. So they go behind the scenes to save a general's son, who turns out to, meet the Axeman, Ruskies, take that. So, which is funny because I fully support the Russians now. Yeah. I mean, you don't get to see this stuff a lot. And the ending's pretty cool. Where remind me what we do with traders against Swede. You little weasel. Oh, that's it. I like that. Yeah, traders deserve anyway. Let me not get into all that. So, but yeah, very interesting. So obviously, I mean, I only got this because of these dudes. So, and a lot of fun. Like I said, I badmouth the British comics in some ways, but they're the only ones that ever had anything like this in a comic till Wayne Van Zandt came along. So I gotta give credit where credit is due. All right, later.